Most of the advice you see online around business and marketing is very theoretical, and it all sounds great. All these principles and frameworks sound awesome when you're watching the video, but at the end of it, you're still left wondering how to apply all of that knowledge to your own business. But in this video, you're going to see the entire process in action. Meet my friend Mel. Mel is an amazing artist, and today we are going to be building a content strategy for them from the ground up. At the end of this video, you'll have seen us identify their ideal customer, build a super cohesive content strategy, and actually come up with ideas that will get them sales. Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video, and let's get started. Mel is an adventure artist whose favorite way to create is to get out in nature. They have been an art educator for more than 13 years, teaching mostly in person, and right now they are pivoting to creative retreats and online courses for folks wanting a more creative life all around the world. Mel has a super solid foundation to their business. They are great at converting their existing audience, but they need more help getting more eyeballs on their work. But before we start brainstorming an overarching content strategy and actually coming up with content ideas that will get them sales, I first wanted to ask Mel a little bit more about the products they're offering and who their ideal customer is for those products. Hey friend, so tell me a little bit about the products that you are trying to sell.
Yeah, so I've got a ton of plein air paintings that I've done out in the landscape, and I'm also working on this really cool thing to help others get out in the landscape. That's a rewrite of the artist's way called the hiker's way.
Ooh, okay. So what is your version of the artist's way? And also, what kind of gripes do you have with the original artist's way? I'm assuming that you do.
Yeah, I have quite a bit of gripes around the original artist's way. The core focus that I have for the hiker's way is to help people simply connect to their inner creative, to their intuition, by going outside, observing, and experiencing stillness in nature.
Yeah, and to use even Julia Cameron's own words here, you're inviting folks to fill their creative cup by going outside, touching grass, as it were, right? And that's pretty useful. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's like time in nature. Like the three main tools for the artist's way are the morning pages, the artist date, and filling the well. And you can do all three by just going on a walk and observing the plants around you and listening to bird song. Like one of my secret goals is that I hope that everyone who does the hiker's way becomes a birder and like starts a life list and is like finding birds on their walks and learning about all of the different birds in their neighborhood and in their community. Like that to me would be really, really cool.
Yeah. Okay. And then you're also selling your original paintings, right? In this kind of same process here. You're not just an educator, you are also a creative yourself. So
yeah,
I think I'm curious to learn a little bit more about the art that you are creating and what you think the value proposition of your work is. And I think that's an area where a lot of folks get really stuck. They have a really easy time figuring out the value proposition of educational products, but really struggle when it comes to their own creative work.
When it comes to my own original artwork, I feel that the motivation is very similar and that I want to remind people of the magic of getting outdoors. Like this painting I'm working on behind me was from a hike that I went on in a really, really wet, rainy hike that just made me see light and color in a way that felt really ethereal and magical. And I want people to connect to the magic that is going outside. It's this thing that's free, that we're surrounded by. Like, I grew up in the city of Chicago, so I grew up like surrounded by buildings that I thought were the tallest thing I'd ever see. And then I went to the Sierras and saw mountains that are 10 times the size of those buildings. And they humble me. They make me realize that I need to be connected to my own core values, to what I really want. And I think that's the thing that Julia Cameron's trying to do in The Artist's Way, is to get you to be in deep alignment with yourself rather than in deep alignment with like all of the shoulds and coulds and anger and shame and everything that goes along with trying to be a creative person in late stage capitalism. Like,
okay, so we understand the products that you are selling, your art, which has a very similar kind of story as The Hiker's Way. I think the next step here is talking about the audience. I think what I'm interested in talking about next is what kind of ideal customer you envision for this product, The Hiker's Way specifically. That seems like kind of the area that we're focusing on here. So I want you to tell me who your ideal customer is for this product and what evidence, like what concrete evidence you have that your existing audience will be interested. So this might be things like comments, conversations that you've had, the performance of certain pieces of content. But I think I'm interested in knowing kind of the ideal customer and then the evidence that you have that this product will be a good fit.
Yeah, I think ideal customer is definitely someone who is feeling like they want to connect to their creativity more deeply. They want to be driven into their creativity and they want to feel a deeper sense into what that creative identity is in a sense of certainty. In terms of the idea around proof with this, I get a lot of comments on YouTube, especially from people who are like, man, I wish I still had a depth with my creative practice, or I really admire what you're doing, but I struggle with it. And then those people, I'd say 10% of them end up on my Discord server. And what's really interesting is that a lot of people on the Discord are trying to do the artist's way and finding it a struggle for the same exact reasons. And so as I've been building it and developing it, it's been fun to kind of hype it up with them as I've been building my own version.
Okay. Cool. That makes sense to me. So to summarize, your ideal audience is someone that is creative, but is kind of struggling with their creative practice, like wants to connect on a deeper level and kind of find their creative voice, but feels like stuck and feels like existing resources like the existing artist's way is kind of not meeting their needs.
Yeah, like if you're an artist you're finding yourself at the point where like your skill is starting to feel good, but you don't know what you really want to make art about, and you find yourself just like watching tutorials and just following along with what they're doing versus doing things that feel like you and that are driven by your own internal desire to make. That is the thing that I want to connect with.
Okay, cool. So let's kind of dig a little bit deeper there. I think I want for us together to identify some beliefs that your customers will have initially, and then beliefs that we want them to have that will kind of drive interest in your product. So we're going to take these beliefs and then turn them into content later, but let's start with the beliefs that they have right now to kind of kick things off a little bit. So tell me a little bit about what beliefs your customer might already have that touches on the problems they experience, what they believe about the artist's way, for example, and how we want those beliefs to shift over time through our marketing for these products and our content.
Yeah, I think one belief is that art is just my hobby. I just do this to relax.
Got it.
And that's totally fine. I think that that's a totally valid thing. But I think that there's something deeper that an artist can get to if it goes beyond just a thing you do for relaxation and to de-stress and become a thing where you're actually alchemizing the deeper reasons for your stress, the deeper feelings that are coming up for you, and putting that into the artwork that you're creating.
Okay, cool. So we're starting out with this belief of art is just my hobby. I just do this to relax. And then how is that belief shifting in your mind? What is the end belief that we're trying to get to here?
I think the end belief that I'm trying to get to with people is that they connect art to their intuition, to this inner sense of knowing, this inner drive that isn't so much just about relaxing, but about using art to give life a sense of meaning, to give life more fruit and purpose, to enrich it, to deepen it.
Okay, so to make that more concrete, we're going from art is just my hobby, I do this just to relax, to art is maybe an essential part of who I am. It's how I process the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I just put out a video this morning that we're recording this that was all about how art actually helped me learn to protect my peace. Once I started using it as a way to just be present and connect with nature instead of using it as a way to like impress a New York gallery owner.
That sounds like a really great video. So we've done that first belief. I think I want to do at least one more. So it seems like the hiker's way is for folks that want to reconnect with their creativity on a deeper level. So some of these folks that maybe we're going to reach here with our marketing might not even like label themselves necessarily as a creative, or might be kind of a fallen creative, like someone that used to do art and no longer does. And a part of what your product seems to do here is invite them to reconnect with that and be creative again. So I'm curious kind of whether you agree with that and kind of what other belief we might create.
Yeah, totally. I think that that's getting into the reason why people gravitate towards the artist way, right? Like it is supposed to be about recovering your creative self. And she uses a lot of language in the artist's way around recovery, which again could be kind of triggering for someone who's actually in recovery. So I think that it is a process of recovering that self, but it's compassionate, it's very gentle, and I'm trying to do it in a way that is trauma informed.
Okay, so let's again create that kind of belief statement here. So probably we're talking about a kind of person that is maybe burnt out, used to consider themselves creative but no longer does, or is a maybe even a full-time creative but is experiencing a lot of burnout and wants a solution. So what kind of concrete belief statement might they have initially?
I feel like I've lost my creative self.
That's a great one. And then where do we want them to end up?
I want them to end up with a sense of curiosity in allowing themselves to be surprised again instead of trying to control. I find this in myself so often, especially also trying to make it as a full-time artist. Like there's this desire we have to control the outcome versus the realistic role of our creativity is to surprise us and to be open to surprises and be open to things coming through if we make space for it. I think that's at the root of what building a creative habit is in the hiker's way, is that it's just about showing up and seeing what happens and being open to what happens instead of trying to control it and be the person guiding it.
Yeah, I like that.
Bumpers.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so we're going from I feel like I've lost my creative self toward I am like in the process of uncovering my creative self, and this is a journey that I will be on for the rest of my life, maybe?
Yes, absolutely. It's totally about that journey over the course of your life. That's why I'm doing the Hiker's Way seasonally, because I want there to be a balance between active doing and integration over the course of an entire year. So that way it becomes a thing where you're connecting with yourself, with one another, with the community, and with this idea, and then going out and actually trying it and seeing how it works with your day-to-day existence. Because with a 12-week program, I think that you can very easily fall off from one particular, misstep. You miss your morning pages one day, and then you end up just in this like self-hatred. And that's the thing that I think that the artist's way kind of cultivates, is this like self-hatred in some people who don't do the work correctly or don't do it exactly as it's lined out. And then they feel like they don't deserve to recover, or they don't deserve to do these things, or they don't deserve to be an artist. And those are the things that I really want to challenge.
So the whole reason I went so hard on making sure that Mel and I both really understood who their ideal customer is, who their ideal audience is because the more you understand that person, the more specific the person that you imagine in your mind is, the better your marketing is going to be. It is really difficult to create content that resonates with your ideal customer if you don't know who that person is, right? Like that's just naturally going to be a lot more difficult. Honestly, the last thing that I want to have happen is for Mel to post an amazing piece of content that goes viral only for it to exclusively attract casual fans that are ultimately not interested in purchasing Mel's work. That is, I think, a bad outcome, right? It doesn't matter if you have hundreds or thousands or millions of followers online. If none of them want to purchase your work, that doesn't matter. Those numbers don't mean anything. What matters is how many customers you have and your ability to attract actual customers into your business. So let's talk a little bit about Mel's current strategy for a minute, because I want to talk about the platforms they currently have going on and how they're thinking about each one. So I've actually organized Mel's platforms into two distinct buckets. First, they have their discovery platforms. This is TikTok and YouTube for Mel. This is where they are optimizing for eyeballs, but their whole process really starts on their nurturing platform, which is Substack. Mel writes these very tender, disability-focused essays on their creative practice, and then turns those essays into short TikToks and long-form YouTube videos. But the ideas they write about here on Substack flow into the rest of their strategy. Mel's current content is really great at educating people and building trust, but they're still really struggling with building kind of a broader awareness of their work and getting the eyeballs they really want to see. So I really want them to focus in on attracting their ideal customer and kind of building more broader content. But before we talk to Mel and come up with a bunch of really high value content ideas, I want to first thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Mel and I both use Squarespace because having great content means nothing if you don't have a professional place to send folks when they are ready to buy. Mel's creative retreats and online courses need a home base that feels as thoughtful and intentional as their content strategy. And that's exactly what Squarespace provides. With Squarespace, you can build a website that actually converts visitors into customers. Their award-winning templates are designed specifically for creatives. So whether you are selling digital products, booking retreat spots, or promoting workshops, everything integrates seamlessly. Plus, they handle all of the technical stuff like payment processing and mobile optimization and SEO tools, so you can focus on what you do best, making art. If you want to give it a try, go to squarespace.com/Kelsey Rodriguez and use my code Kelsey Rodriguez at checkout for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. And now let's get back to my conversation with Mel. I want to work with you a little bit, Mel, to take your beliefs, that kind of belief statement that we made about our ideal customer and how we want that to change, and think about content ideas that will facilitate that transition. Does that make sense? And then hopefully in the process, you'll have a really natural opportunity to start selling your work in a way that will be so seamless that it won't even feel like selling to your customer. And it won't feel icky for you either, hopefully at least. So let's start with that first belief statement. Your customer is going to be starting out thinking, art is just my hobby. I do this just to relax. And hopefully they're going to end up thinking art is an essential part of who I am and it's how I process the world. So the thing that we have to do here is target that first statement. What kind of content ideas do you think would hit home for that particular person?
So I was actually thinking about doing a series, both on TikTok that is nice and short, and then over the course of time, slightly longer on YouTube, where I'm actually going through the hiker's way for a different medium. I'm a musician as well, and I often don't see the value in my music because I just see it as a hobby, and so I don't prioritize it. But whenever I do prioritize it, it is the thing that allows me to transmute so many deep emotions, and I want to help other people be able to do that.
Okay, so you're going to basically mirror this statement for your music practice, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And I think there's like a delineation that I have there of like, I don't necessarily want my music practice to be something I monetize, but I think that it's incredibly important as a catalyst for me moving through the world. Yeah, I think that's compatible with this statement. Okay, cool. So in a Substack post, TikTok content, or a YouTube video, or, Substack that you then turn into a YouTube video, something about kind of the casual art fans that do have a deeper reason why they create, but are maybe, I don't know, emotionally stifled, or maybe they have really bad experiences in the past where someone told them they weren't a good artist and they didn't, have what it took or something, and have now relegated that important part of themselves that was once crucial to a kind of just like hobby status, when in fact it's like maybe actually really, really important to them. So for this one, I have been working on an outline for an essay about how time in nature helps me process. And I think that's the like core of the hiker's way that makes it different than the artist's way. Instead of an artist date where you're going to a museum, you're just going out in nature and witnessing and allowing yourself to be in a quiet space. I think that hiking or walking in nature is like a moving meditation. When we take it in that regard, it can be something that opens us up to possibility that we didn't see before.
I think I also want to bring up here that a good part of your work that I really like is kind of the anti-technology is like not quite right. Like you're not a Luddite, but there is this sort of element in your essays and your other social media work, your content in general about kind of this act of unplugging and how it's good to unplug and focus on you and your own creativity and the community that you're a part of and to do that out into the world. So what are some content ideas that come to mind for you when you think about that particular theme?
Yeah, so one of the weeks in the Hiker's Way, we are supposed to take a full 7-day social media break. And so I'll be doing that and documenting it and talking about the benefits of doing it, especially in regards to how social media creates a deeper relationship to the inner and outer critic, because we can look at ourselves performing ourselves online, and then we also have everyone else watching us do it. So disconnecting from that is one. And then I think that when we look critically at our relationship to technology, it gives us an opportunity for us to deal with the shame or the things that we're covering up when we reach for tech. Like, what is the thing that is making us reach for a quick answer or reach for just quick entertainment versus what's going on deeper inside of us?
Okay, yeah. So some kind of essay on like quick dopamine hits, maybe how that undermines our creativity or even like an essential part of our humanity even.
Yeah, yeah. And also, yes, absolutely. My brain is lighting up because it's also relating to a different essay I've been working on. I've got so many things cooking. That is about how I hurt my back by being so reliant on trackers, like being so reliant on like my health dashboard on my phone as like I needed to train. And that's a thing that I really want to make sure that is clear with the Hiker's Way, is it's not about like crushing gains or like crazy active, like you got to go on a 10-mile hike kind of thing. It's just like going out and intentionally looking in nature, listening to our body, listening to our inner self and that inner creative, and reconnecting with it.
Yeah. There seems to be a kind of a nugget somewhere in there of like a take that you have kind of against even productivity or kind of constant self-improvement culture of always trying to one-up yourself when maybe instead of trying to always be better and more productive, maybe you want to go slower and be more deliberate.
Yeah, the goal of the Hiker's Way is to be anti-hustle culture. It is not about grinding with your art.
A huge part of what we're touching on here is how your own experiences are kind of mirrored in how you expect your ideal audience to kind of be. And so I think it would be really useful to you to create content kind of around that personal story and then connect it back to your product and even like frame it in such a way that feels like you are leaving room for your audience. Like, my content is for you if, or POV, like, you know, that kind of trend. And to really kind of create content that is meant to be found by folks that are just like you, that are a couple steps behind, but have had those same crucial experiences. Does that make sense?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, so I think a big thing that will kind of come into play here is that kind of story-focused content and then transitioning that into, hey, you're starting out here, but I've actually done the work to solve this problem and here's my solution. It's not perfect, it will take work, but if you want it, it's here. And that kind of being the overall flow of connecting based on the shared experience and then talking about how you personally have dealt with it and then pitching your product as the solution or as a guide, not a, you know, super easy fix.
Yeah, I want the Hiker's Way to feel like I'm handing you a trail map. I'm not going to tell you what trail to take. I'm not going to tell you exactly how to pace yourself or what way you have to do it. I'm not going to be didactic like that. And it's those didactic things that I felt like were really hard for me about the artist's way. But with this map, you get to choose how you want to approach it and what kind of creative life you want to build.
I like that. I think that you should literally use that in your content as your sales copy. that trail map metaphor is very compatible with everything that you've been talking about so far. The kind of idea of I'm giving you this guide, but I'm not going to track every step. Like, I'm giving you the big picture. You can take whatever path you want, and here's the options that are available to you that I personally put effort into uncovering. And there's so much that you could do here. You could talk about the behind the scenes of developing this product, link that back to your story. You can talk about your gripes with the artist's way, and again, link that back to your story, right? I think the story is really what I want you to focus on here, and all these different formats of, you know, these 3 things that I found wrong with the artist's way, or why people don't finish the artist's way. All of those kind of different topics and kind of formats can all link back to the core, which is your story, your personal experience, and why you think this product will be valuable by others.
Totally. That makes so much sense.
Okay, so we have created content that is laser focused to your ideal customer and your product. Now I want to kind of wrap things up by talking about some call to actions. Okay, so I want to start with this call to action section by talking about kind of the 2 different categories of call to actions that I kind of think about, right? On one side, you have the folks that are literally just hearing about you and your work for the very first time, and that kind of invites a different style of call to action, right? Where you're explaining a little bit more about who you are and what your value proposition is for your product. The next category is folks who are already familiar with you and your work. They need a little bit less convincing, but they do have to, you know, be a little convinced. How would you invite someone to learn more about your work if they were just discovering you for the very first time? Imagine that you have a TikTok that goes viral or a Substack that does super, super well. If you were to end that piece of content with a call to action, what kind of call to action would you put there?
So the first thing that comes to mind is, are you longing to be more creative? Like that one to me just feels like really spicy and punchy.
I like that. I think a way that we could make that even better is to say something a little more along the lines of, and if you are someone who is looking to have more of a hobby and a robust creative practice, I've created this resource called The Hiker's Way to help you uncover your creativity and connect with that creative self on a deeper level. Obviously, you know, rewrite that to make it a little more punchier, but I think something to that effect where we're like, okay, this is the shared experience that we have, or the desire that you're looking for, the transformation, and then immediately connecting that to your product.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think another one here is we've been talking a lot about kind of that rediscovering creativity elements to it. And I think a common experience your ideal customers will have had is that they were super creative as a child, right? And I think a part of what your product is doing is encouraging them to rediscover that part of themselves, as we've been talking about. So what kind of call to action might you give? And again, a TikTok, a Substack post, a YouTube video, what have you, that's like a single sentence that would touch on those themes.
So something nice and direct, like when you were a kid, did you feel more creative? And here's a way to get back to that feeling. That's also what I love about getting out in nature, is that it makes me feel like I'm my inner kid. Like I just want to play with dirt and look at rocks. And that I think is so fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think for a lot of these, depending on the content itself that you are creating here, a really easy call to action that you can super easily repeat, that is a little bit generic, but I think would still work here, is something like, and if any of these themes have resonated with you, if you would love to reconnect with your creativity and kind of rediscover your inner child, this resource that I've created, The Hiker's Way, is tailor-made for that. And it's not like an ordinary course. It's actually a podcast audio course. So you're going to listen to it as you go out into the world and as you create art. You're not going to log into a course platform. I'm inviting you to be educated, like hear my guidance as you go out and do these things.
Exactly. Yeah, it's something that they can just take with them, have in their pocket. And there's a thing that I've been talking about in my writing around The Hiker's Way about how I want people to transform their relationship with their phone into being a partner rather than a thief. Because I think so much of the conversation around our phones is that our phones are like stealing our time. But I think that tech can actually be a positive partner if we use it the right way.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, we've done all the strategy. We've done all the planning. Now it's your job to do the content, to actually create all of this stuff and tell us how it goes.
Yeah, it's time to get to work.
So what you just saw was me working with Mel to create an entire content strategy from scratch for their business. We identified their ideal customer, brainstormed tailored content ideas to find that person where they're at, and we came up with call to actions to help boost sales. It has been 2 weeks or so since our conversation, and Mel is already getting amazing results using the ideas that we brainstormed together. I go through this entire process and so much more in my book. It is 200 pages long. It has 91 pages of worksheets and activities, and you can get access to my favorite chapter totally for free by joining my email list. There will be a link to that in the description, and if you want to keep hanging out, if you want to keep learning stuff and spending some quality time together, I really recommend that you try out my Business Breakthrough series. It is, in some folks' opinion, their favorite series on this channel, so I really recommend that you give that a shot. It'll be somewhere on the screen right now, and I will see you there. Bye.